Good evening, everyone. It is Sunday, May 6th, 2012. I'm Rob Booker, coughing and sneezing from allergies like crazy. I'm joined by Scott Welsh. Hi, Scott.
Good evening.
And boy, do we have some good stuff going on. Scott, have you looked at the euro tonight?
I've looked at I breezed through all the currencies and there's some crazy stuff going on, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What am I
If,
trying to say? That's what I'm
if,
trying to say.
if you're not aware of what's going on, Nicolas Sarkozy, president of France, was in an election against Francois Hollande, or Holland, and Holland won. Holland is in favor of renegotiating the European treaty, and that uncertainty has driven the euro down, meaning the market does not like uncertainty. So you've seen the euro fall tonight. It depends on what you look at it against, whether or not you see a giant fall or just a little bit of a fall. So you've got Friday's economic report that pushed the euro down, the non-farm payroll report. And then you've got the news and uncertainty created by the election tonight that pushes it down further. So you've got news on top of news. What does this mean to us? Well, it only really means something to us when there's a Bossilator trade. And Scott, there are in fact some Bossilator trades setting up. And in particular, I'm looking at the Australian dollar, US dollar tonight, not the euro, but the Australian dollar, US dollar on the short-term charts. I've got a reading on my charts and my Bossilator reading on the Australian dollar, US dollar. I've got a reading of, I think it is over 1,000 now on the 5-minute charts and the 1-minute charts on the Australian dollar.
Yeah, I'm over 1100 on the 5-minute chart actually, so that's pretty extended.
Yeah, so I thought we'd kick things off tonight with a trade. I thought we'd, pretty much just go willy-nilly. I've got some great stuff planned for everyone. Scott, we're going to talk about some statistics that you have prepared as well.
Yes.
But we're going to kick things off tonight, like I said, with a look at the Australian dollar, US dollar 5-minute chart. I have a trade, a brand new trade just posted in the Bossilator website under the counter trend trade section with indicators that come from the updated Arizona rules. And tonight I want to spend 10 minutes right now describing to you what this trade looks like and explaining to you what the elements of this trade are. For those of you that want to follow along on the Bossilator website, you can scroll down on the Bossilator website. On the left-hand side of the page, you can see 6.8, the smooth jazz trade. That's under counter trend trading on the Bossilator website. You can click on that trade, that link, and what that pulls up is indicators that you need, an example of a chart that shows the beginnings of that trade. And I'll post a little video in that section as well. But for right now, you can get the indicators from MetaTrader in that section. You don't need MetaTrader as is true for just about any other trade you take on the Bossilator. But it will help you make your screen look exactly like mine does, if that's important to you. And Scott, this comes from the Arizona rules. We did a webinar just recently about the Arizona rules, about the trend trade online. This is a counter trend trade using some of the same indicators that I talked about in that webinar. And it's an incredibly accurate way to plan counter trend trades. And tonight we have a perfect example on the Australian dollar. So here we go. This trade requires us to use the Heiken Ashi candles. I've posted a link to download a special version of the Heiken Ashi candles, which are called the smoothed Heiken Ashi candles. And if you load those candles onto your screen with the regular settings that you have on those candles, they will look like what you're seeing right here. You could also simply change your candle type on your charts to the Heiken Ashi candles, and that would be fine. For the purposes of our webinar tonight, I'm not going to describe to you a giant amount of technical information surrounding this candle type, because the trade doesn't depend on the understanding of how they're built. We will get into that more deeply as time goes on, but for tonight I just want to describe the rules of the trade. I'm going to assume that in your charting platform you can switch to the Heiken Ashi candles, and I will assume also that if you have MetaTrader that you're experienced with MetaTrader and know how to download that file to your computer, place it in the Experts Indicators folder in MetaTrader, and then activate it by selecting Insert, Indicators, Custom, and so forth. Scott, we've got a reading of over 1,100 on the 5-minute Australian dollar US dollar chart. So we're looking at buy trades. We want to buy the Australian dollar.
Yes, we definitely do, yes.
I have no idea why we would sell off the Australian dollar on a Sunday night that a different person wins a French election. But that's what happened. The dollar won, other currencies lost. The Australian dollar's been in a free fall, it seems, lately. And as you know, with the Bossilator, we're looking for counter trend trades, and 1,000 is a perfect time to start doing it.
Yeah, on currency trades especially. We're going to look at a stock trade later, but currency trades, 1,000 is absolutely magnificent.
All right. I agree. And we haven't had a lot of really great currency trades lately. The market's been ranging so much that we don't really get Bossilator readings over 700 to 800, but we've got it now. Now, you don't want to fight trends in a ridiculously ignorant manner. You don't want to hold on to losing trades. You don't want to execute a trade and just think that the Bossilator can't get to 3,000. It can. I don't think it ever has. I don't think in the history of forever. I don't even think on the Australian dollar it's ever gotten over 2,200. Most of the time it can't even get over 500. But it's at 1,100 right now, and that means we want to buy it. So the first part of this plan is to get a Bossilator reading so excessive that you know you can begin the process of planning a trade in the opposite direction of the trend. The second thing you want to look at is divergence. Now, I've loaded a second indicator on my charts, and it's called the MACD divergence, the FX5 MACD divergence. Inside of the updated Bossilator Smooth Jazz Trade lesson, you've got the divergence indicator that you can download to your computer. You can save that inside of your MetaTrader folder, inside the Experts folder, inside of the Indicators folder. Then close MetaTrader, reopen it, and add it to your charts in the simple, basic, standard form that you find it. Don't change any settings, just load it as is. It gets you a MACD that is set to 12, 26, and 9, and it draws lines on the screen where we see divergence. Divergence is when an indicator loaded on our charts is moving in one direction, but the candles or price is moving in another direction. That's divergence. And with divergence, we follow the indicator rather than following the price. Price is falling here, but the indicator in this case is rising. That means that we have an early warning sign that the Australian dollar US dollar might move back up instead of continuing to fall. We've got a variety of really great things happening simultaneously. We've got a Bossilator reading over 1,100. That's an early warning sign that we could go up. We've got the Australian dollar, US dollar hitting or getting close to the 1,000, the Australian dollar always screws me up, Scott. 1.0100. That is a crazy looking number.
Is that a binary code? What is that?
Dave.
Dave.
You need to buy the Australian dollar, Dave. So we've got it down at a round number, and we've got a Bossilator reading of 1,100. And we've got divergence. We have the MACD rising while the candles are falling. That is an early warning sign, once again, that we may turn around and move upward. Scott, I would love to see the actual number 1.0100 get hit on the Australian dollar. That's down here, that red line I just drew on the screen, the horizontal line I just drew on the screen. I would love to see that number hit. Because then we'll have a round number hit. We'll have divergence on the candles. The price is falling, the MACD is rising. We'll have a Bossilator reading that's even larger than what we have right now. And then we could take a trade using the following rule. We're going to get rid of the price candles and just show these Heiken Ashi Smooth Jazz candles.
Smooth. And sometimes it confuses me, and I'm easily confused. But you say we're planning a trade, and it's pretty high probability, and then you say let it fall even more.
Oh.
I think it's it wouldn't be unreasonable at all to forget that round number down there and to plan this trade. But if you want to wait even more, and on these counter trend trades, we've talked about it, waiting is so crucial. If you get a reading higher and get down lower and get divergence and then use our smooth jazz, that would be an incredible trade. So I don't think it's bad, and it might start here and go all the way up, but I just want everyone to understand that you could plan it now, but when you use round numbers, you might even get more percentage.
That's a really great point. And in any case, if you take the trade now, you still want your stop loss to be lower than that round number. It's great advice from Scott. Okay, so we've got the Bossilator indicator that starts the whole thing off. Everything starts with the Bossilator reading. You can get that Bossilator reading on the website. You go to the FX radar, or you can load an indicator into MetaTrader. Lately, I don't even load it into MetaTrader. I just look at the radar screen on the website. I then look at price, and I see, have we fallen and hit a round number? You know, we have all kinds of counter trend trading styles. In this instance, I'm looking for divergence to carry us back up, and we have it. What's nice about this indicator that I've loaded onto the chart is it draws the divergence for us. I don't have to draw it myself. It's fantastic. And we've got it. We've got price falling, and we've got the indicator rising, the MACD rising. That's number 2. So we've got the divergence we're looking for. The next element of this trade that we look for on the smooth jazz counter trend trade is we look for the Heikin-Ashi candles to switch from red, which are bearish, to blue, which are bullish. And that is the entry signal. And that has already occurred. The blue candles have already appeared. And that would signal a buy trade right now. But I'd like to see this fall even further. When we have a trend going so fast and so far that we've reached a reading of over 1,000 on the Bossilator, we've got a pretty good trend. So I would wait for the round number to be hit. If that happens, these candles will turn from blue to red again, and then wait for them to turn blue all over again and get more divergent, fall lower, put a stop under the round number 1.0100, and a profit target, Scott, of all the way at the 800 period simple moving average, which is at that point going to be approximately 250 pips away from price.
That just looks delicious.
It does look
That's all
delicious.
I can say. I just like that very much.
Do you ever get allergies, Scott?
Yeah, bad allergies.
Yeah, I think I'm allergic to the Australian dollar because the longer we've looked at the charts, the more I've had to sneeze tonight. Are there any questions from our Bossilator members joining us on the webinar tonight? We have Adrian saying Euro Swiss looking like something. Are we recording all of the webinars for those that have missed any, says Joe. And all right. And Elliot says, could I go over the cloud tonight? Yeah, sure. I'll talk about the cloud tonight. Absolutely. In fact, Scott, maybe we'll look at the cloud for a moment and talk about a few of the questions that just came in and then look at the Euro Swiss.
Ned's looking for what are some good allergies, maybe some allergies that I guess make you more sniffly than itchy.
All right, that's great. All right, so great questions. Keep the questions coming in. We'd love to hear your questions. Happy to hear them tonight. Don't be shy about your questions. We're happy to see whatever you have that you'd like to ask us. All right, let's start with Elliot's question about the cloud. If I switch over to the cloud and I switch over to the Australian dollar, US dollar, here I've got the Ichimoku cloud. My settings on the Ichimoku cloud are 18, 52, and 104. Every single charting platform has a different way of showing the cloud and different numbers, and sometimes you can only put 2 numbers in and sometimes you can put 3. I can't see your charts right now, but I can tell you if you use MetaTrader, you have 3 numbers. You have a Tenkan number, a Kijun, and a Senku. First is 18, second is 52, and the third is 104. I love buy trades above the dark cloud and sell trades below the light cloud. You can see examples of both of these instances on the charts in front of us tonight. A trend trade below the light cloud in a downward trend below the 800 is great. And a counter trend trade above the dark cloud when our Bossilator reading becomes excessive is also excellent. For the
You know what's
purposes,
interesting about that?
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I'm bad. I was going to say, if we wait for that round number, like you said, guess what? Price would move to your right, and that cloud would come down. And to move through the cloud might coincide exactly with waiting for that round number.
I would not be surprised if price falls just as Scott said down to the round number 1.0100, then pops up and comes above the dark cloud at 1.0150. I would not be surprised at all. And that is an Ichimoku cloud Bossilator trade. And I guess I need an entry inside of our Bossilator course to describe that trade as well. It waits a little bit longer to get in the trade than the divergence smooth jazz version, but there's no reason why you would find that to be any less productive or profitable. So that's how I look for trades with the Bossilator and the cloud. A buy trade above the dark cloud against the trend, and a sell trade below the light cloud with the trend. These are incredibly reliable signals with respect to the Bossilator. When used in conjunction with the Bossilator, you get some context, and it makes it just easier overall, and you don't find yourself getting caught up in a lot of back and forth movement that a lot of people might get caught up in. Joe asks, are we recording all the webinars? We are. Last week's webinar disappeared into the black hole of the internet universe. We did it, we recorded it, and I uploaded it, and it's gone. I'm in the process of recovering it. I bought a laptop. The laptop screen went pink and fluttery, and they took the computer away, sent it back to HP, and it never came back. So I'm trying to get that hard drive recovered from the machine that I sent back to Hewlett-Packard. I have the replacement machine, but it doesn't have the Bossilator webinar from last week. But yes, we are in the habit of recording every single session that we do. Kevin says, what a great trade. I absolutely agree. Adrian, we'll come back to your Euro Swiss. Ned asks, what are good allergies? That's hilarious. Greg says, why not use a volume indicator with this? Gosh, you know, Scott, I've thought a lot about it. Have you ever thought about using the volume indicator in conjunction with the Bossilator trade?
Definitely in stocks. I don't know how to use it in Forex. Maybe there's a secret volume indicator. But yeah, definitely in stock. If you get a high volume move on a turn back to the 800, I think that would be fantastic.
Right. That's awesome. All right. And Adrian says the Euro Swiss looking vulnerable. Maybe time to add to positions. Let's take a look at the Euro Swiss quickly. The Euro Swiss dropped a bit on all this news down to the round number 1.2000. Almost exactly. And it looks like it had a wild recovery up 10 pips from that number, Scott.
10? Wait, it moved 10 pips? Are you serious?
I know that we don't generally talk like this during the webinar. But Scott, this is a pretty good Bossilator reading. It's not a great one. It's been below the 800 on the 1 hour chart for approximately 700 bars. On the 15-minute chart, approximately not. 5-minute chart, not. 1-minute chart, not. Because it doesn't go anywhere. It's also dropped pretty significantly to the 1.2000 number. I think that's significant. And Scott, we've got the Swiss National Bank that says they're going to protect the 1.2000 number. For those of you interested in speculative trading, and you want to trade alongside a central bank that does not care for their currency appreciating. They'd love to see the euro jump up against the Swiss franc. Adrian recommends that now might be a time to think about adding to the positions, and I cannot disagree. I cannot disagree. It's probably the greatest speculative trade that has existed in quite some time. Euro Swiss 1.2000. You're trading with the central bank. If it drops to 1.1990, you just get out. It's 20 pip stop. Profit target could be about 100 points. Up here at the 800 period simple moving average on the 4-hour chart, 1.2120. That's a perfect target. And that's just an idea. The Bossilator reading is over 700 on the 1-hour chart. And there's nothing else I have to say about that. Kevin says, this isn't on point, but I have a question on leverage. I trade with FXCM UK, and I thought I was trading with 201. On my FXCM account, it shows as 0.05% per lot. Is that the same as 201? The answer is yes. Do you use CCI for confirmation on what you look for? Going back to the cloud, what I look for on the CCI is if I get a move above the dark cloud, Elliot, and I'm in a buy trade here above the dark cloud, and the CCI goes to positive 225, that is a sign for me that the move has exhausted its potential. And I need to start thinking about getting out. All right. So there we go, Scott. Any comments, Scott? Any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, anything else?
No, definitely. When I scanned through before the webinar tonight, the Aussie dollar was immediately jumped out at me. So that's by far my favorite. There are some others that have some extreme readings, but this was my favorite trade as far as currencies go.
All right. Fantastic. Kevin says, oops, typo, 5% per lot. Okay, that does not look like 200 to 1. Kevin, here's what I would do. I would, next time you open a trade on your account, look at what your margin, your available margin switches to, or your used margin switches to. Write down that number and write down the size of the trade that you took and post that in an email to me, and I'll take a look at it. And if you see what it costs you in margin to execute that trade, you can know for sure, but that does not sound like 200 to 1. Greg says if you used a volume indicator on a higher time frame, it would tell you if the smart money was done with the move down or up. Sounds good to me, Scott. If I'm ready for smart money. Greg, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I definitely like smart money over dumb money.
All right, that's great. I'm going to pause the recording and mute my microphone, and I'm going to blow my nose, but I don't want you all to hear it. Okay, that was really smooth. That felt so nice.
How'd that go? Did that go well?
It was so awesome. I'm sorry you all missed that. Scott, could I make you the presenter on the webinar and take a look at your charts?
Why, you may.
Adrian says use beaconase. Very good. I don't think we have that, but I'm going to look at it.
You see my charts?
Certainly can. And they look delicious.
They do, and they smell good too. This is Apple, and we've talked about Apple, and there's every good reason to talk about Apple. We've been talking about shorting Apple. We even did an options trade shorting Apple. It went up here, dove back above, and now it's diving back beneath the Bollinger Band. I really like a short trade on Apple with fair value down at 295. We don't have to ride it all the way to then. We can get another options trade, maybe set up another one. The previous one went well. But I love it when it breaks through the Bollinger Band here. It's also filled the gap. I just love a short trade on Apple. Maybe we could put the Heikin-Ashi on it too, or put the new and improved Arizona rules on it, and maybe even look at that. But it's one of my favorites. It's only $7.79, but in stocks that's plenty. So if anyone cares about equities, I do like this trade.
This is such a great trade because Apple jumped up after their earnings report that showed they sold 35 million iPhones. They had profit. I think it was cash profit of $10 billion in the last quarter. And So it popped up, but it didn't last.
Yeah, it was a short-lived rally, and I was looking to see if I could put the Heikinashi on, but I don't have the Heikinashi on this chart. I would love to do that. I love, by the way, I love Heikinashi. I studied it a little bit about 4 years ago because I heard about it at a Las Vegas convention. I just absolutely love Heikinashi. I'm so happy that it's a part of the Arizona Rules Nets. Can I just say that to you? No one else had to hear that.
Yeah, you could say that to
Love
me.
Heikinashi because it's hard to look at bars and stay in trades. So I would love to use Heikinashi. In fact, I have in the past put some kind of a momentum indicator on my charts and used Heikinashi for that. I haven't been able to find a Heikinashi indicator for TradeStation for quite some time, but I'm going to find it and it's going to be on my charts permanently.
That's
Here's
awesome.
another trade we've talked about. Um, this one we talked about selling about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And it rose, huh? This is due, though. Look at the number, 796. Once again, if it got near this Bollinger Band, we could see an acceleration. Or close below the Bollinger Band, we could see an acceleration back down to fair value at 32. If you look at 62, and the fair value is 32, there's got to be a way for us to make some money between 62 and 32. If it broke the PSAR here, I'd be interested. I'd probably look for the Bollinger Band break downward. ROST Ross Stores is due. I know retail has done pretty well despite bad reports, whatever those mean.
Yeah.
But keep it on your radar. I'm still very, very interested in shorting ROST.
And it only becomes more attractive to you now. You've said this before, but a lot of people think, oh, the trade went against me. I was wrong. You say next, after I was wrong, the next thing you say is, and I'm going to make even more money now that.
Oh, absolutely. If you're trading Bossilators for short gains, and I'm going to show a way to trade it for huge gains, so there's two ways to go about it. But when I trade the Bossilator live, and when I traded it live in currencies, I was going for short gains. And truly, the money is to be made when it goes wrong. And that's, I mean, you can make money. You can make a couple hundred here, a couple hundred there. I mean, and I did that. But, I'll never forget the day I got into a bad Bossilator trade. It was during Mother's Day a couple summers ago. We call it the Mother's Day Massacre around this house. And I got in trouble, and I bought more too early, and it was some sleepless nights. And then on Sunday, it gapped up to the 800, and we made $10,000 in one. I mean, I'll never forget that. It was harrowing, and I don't think I handled it right, and I would handle it differently now. But that's what can happen when you get into a Bossilator trade, and it goes against you, and you add to your position properly. I mean, it can just be a huge amount of money. So for Ross Stores, even though we talked about it here and it's gone against us, that wouldn't trouble me at all. If it goes higher, I would probably in the 70 range look to maybe add to my position.
Yeah.
Or it's just going to break the Bollinger Band and we're going to win anyway. If it gets to 50, I mean, we were shorting in the 60 range. If it gets to 55 even, you could take it on a winning trade. So I'm still very bearish, as they say, on ROST. I still would like to short that.
That's awesome.
I've got some shorter-term charts, too. Those are my two favorite. But there's some short-term charts that have big numbers and not as much space as I'd want. But here's United Health, which is decent. It's down here by the Bollinger Band. I would love for UNH to come down. Now, this is a 3-minute chart. I do like the 1-minute charts generally because I'm just used to them now. But 3-minute charts, it's a little less sketchy. Sometimes you get a lot of blipping around on the 1-minute chart.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of experimenting in stocks especially because a 1-minute volume, if you don't get a big volume stock on a 1-minute chart, it kind of looks like chicken scratchings. It doesn't look like a real trade. It just looks like hieroglyphics on I don't know what it looks like. But if you go to the 3-minute, of course you can go 5-minute, whatever. But if you go to 3-minute, it tends to look like a real chart. So I'm very interested with a 909 reading on the 3-minute chart. If this would come down here to 54.48, even 54.50, I'd love to buy UNH because these short-term trades, you can take them for a 1% gain or a 2% gain.
Oh,
And
wow.
you can do that all day. You can just do it all day and next day and next week and next month, and it's just fantastic.
Is United Health on your list of value stocks?
This is on my top 100 stocks for 2012. So instead of doing research, I think I mentioned in the Lost webinar,
Yeah.
so maybe with a Beatles album in there somewhere, there
Yeah.
must be, but
Right.
this is a book. Every year, I don't know if people are aware, that they give you the top 100 stocks for this year, 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12. This is, I bought the book from the library, so I didn't really buy it. But I took the book from the library. I didn't take it, I borrowed it. But and then I took all the stocks and I put them on my list. There was 100 stocks there. So that's where I got that. The Magic Formula stocks, there's the Dow. BA, Boeing is looking pretty good too, but these are just the top 100 for 2012. And what they do is basically they look for value stocks. I mean, to write a book of the top 100 stocks, you can't write anything too risky. So these are all very Magic Formula-ish stocks. These are all very good value stocks.
Top 100 stocks. Petco. Webvan. Yeah, you can't be too risky.
Monsanto. Yeah, there's Apple, ADM, Staples, Starbucks, So yeah, they're fairly big and they're fairly stable. There's not really much risk of any of these going to zero. I mean, almost none. So that's why I have them on my radar screen. Starbucks isn't terrible either. Once again, I would love for Starbucks to come down. Just touch this Bollinger Band. You see, we could have gotten a decent trade. We made just a little bounce. See how it kind of bounces off the Bollinger Band? But fair value of 57. You've got $2. A 1% gain is 50 cents. Can I get 50 cents before it gets to 57? My wager would be yes, you could. So wait for it to come down or even lower, and then try to get a 1% trade. I think that would be fantastic.
And that's assuming that, once again, Starbucks has reached a point where it's fallen far enough. It's hard to imagine Starbucks being sold off like this. Just from a fundamental standpoint, I don't remember reading anything about Starbucks that said there was something wrong with the company, except for the fact that they probably destroy the living of millions of impoverished coffee farmers across the world. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's true.
No, they're not. I mean, there's probably nothing wrong with the company, right? Scott, it's
No,
just probably just falling out of favor temporarily while people are buying like technology stocks, right?
Well, that's the thing on these small charts in 1 minute, the 3 minute. Nothing's happened to Starbucks, precisely, but the market's gone down for a couple days. And on a 1 minute or a 3 minute chart, all you have to do is have a couple down days for whatever reason. Nothing wrong with the company, and that's why you can take this 1% trade, and it's really pretty easy. So I am not big on fundamentals. I was almost strictly fundamental trader in stocks when I started, and I just found no use for them. So I don't look at fundamentals much, but it wouldn't kill you if you found a Bossilator stock or a stock with a good Bossilator reading. Just look it up on Yahoo, see if there's anything major going on. I don't know if it matters, but clearly there's nothing going on in Starbucks. So this would be, I'd love for it to come down just for no good reason and then wait for the bounce up.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really like that one a lot.
I don't think CVS, I looked at CVS is almost done. But we could have had CVS back here in this range, in the 46 range, and could have had a nice short several days ago. But it's got a nice number, but it's almost done. So those are some short-term charts. I like them all. We can move on unless there's some other short-term you want to look at. I wanted to show some long-term counter-trend Bossilator trading on just a little bit of testing that I've done.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's kind of interesting. Go over to my stocks tab. And this is Apple. And I stuck on the 3 minute chart because we're talking about short-term trading. And if you want to trade a lot, you got to go down to the short-term charts. All I did with Apple here is I put my my little trading robot friend and just had it take some automated trades, and I took it back 5 years. What I was interested in is I think this is extremely rudimentary, what we're going to talk about here in the next few minutes. I think we can improve it mightily because when I did this round of testing for tonight, I didn't take into consideration how much space there was between the trade and the Bossilator, and I think that's absolutely critical. I mean, we've only mentioned it 400 million times, but it matters. It absolutely matters to have. But plus, if it's a better place to start it when it's got some space. I mean, something dramatic has happened, and it's a better time to get in. However, on this series of testing, there was no consideration given to any sort of space. You can see there's not a big Bollinger Band on here at all. All I wanted to do is see how if you took a counter trend trade but took it for a huge profit target and a relatively small stop, just a little bit beneath the previous low, how far you'd have to go and how successful you could be. So a typical trade, and this is up to date, this is a typical trade, and this is how the program took the trade. And that is, I'm waiting for a Bossilator reading. On this particular set, I started very, very early. I started only 400 away. Now, for our currency, if you start at 400 away,
you're going to get killed.
Just please don't. Just please, I don't want to talk about it. It makes me upset. I'll need a hug. But stocks are different. Now, and each stock, by the way, has its own personality. I just wanted to do Apple because it's got huge volume and everybody talks about it. Plus, it's on my list of top 100 stocks. But I started at 400, which statistically is okay. I mean, it's not the worst thing you could do, but it also creates more trades. So what this did is waited for it to be 400 bars away, and then it took a counter trend trade. And I'll go ahead and show the parameters of what I'm doing. And so when we look at the numbers, first of all, I did it on a $10,000 account. So I went back to 2007, and we're just trading 100 shares each time.
Okay.
And once again, what we're looking at here, as you make more and more money, you could trade a lot more than 100 shares as your account grows. But this doesn't take that into consideration.
Okay.
Back in 2007, it was about $100 a share, so I just did 100 shares. It trades the whole trading session, trades 24 hours a day, so it trades the whole stock session. As you can see, the counter trend input, it starts at 400 away. That's where we started it. That is all gibberish for my currency testing. The stop loss exit is on, meaning that this is going to go below the low. Now, it was a $100 stock when we started back in 2010. It's not any longer.
Right.
This worked even better, and I ran the testing if you did it exactly at the previous low, but because we're going for such a huge profit target, it was slightly, not a ton, but it was slightly more profitable if you put it 200 cents, $2. You put it $2 below the low, and you've always said that. Put it below the low, but give it some space.
Yeah.
So what we did tonight, we just put it $2 below, which isn't a lot on a $100 stock. That's where it started. And it became even less as the stock rose. And then we went for a 10-to-1 profit target.
That's awesome.
So whatever the low was, plus $2, we're going to hold on and go for 10-to-1. Now, that is more than likely going to be past the 800 simple moving average. And this 800 simple moving average, or fair value, is perfectly acceptable. It's perfectly acceptable, especially if we're going for smaller wins. You don't really, if you're going for a small win and hits the 800, it's time to move on to the next trade. But what this methodology, or using the Bossilator in this way, what we're saying is this is extreme. Something extreme has happened. It is beneath fair value. And I know you've mentioned it a ton of times. If it's beneath fair value on the 3-minute chart, what's the likelihood it's going to be below value on the 5, on the 60-minute, on the daily?
Right.
We've got more room up there. We don't have to stop. So it takes a trade on a small retracement, meaning it touches the Bollinger Band, bounces off the Bollinger Band, the PSAR changes, and we get in the trade.
It's awesome.
This one stopped out. This is the most recent one. Place to stop, $2 below the low. I'll blow that up a little bit. So there's the exact low. Stop was placed $2 below that, and it stopped out. But here's starting back in 2007 with a $10,000 account. Here's what it came out to be. It made 240%, which divided by 5, you're looking at about 25% a year being a counter trend trader. That's not bad, especially for having the robot do it for you. But it just goes to show you. I wanted to show everyone that these counter trend trades, they can be vicious, but they are the start of something big, almost always. If you look at the winning percentage, it's horrible if you care about winning percentage. Really winning, I mean, if you like to win, counter trend trading is not for you. I mean, how many times have you said it's not for the faint of heart? It's not, and it isn't. If you need to win all the time, counter trend trading for big numbers is not that great.
Well, if you need to win all the time, trading's not for you.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying, but I'm glad you said it. Average winning trade is $5,500. The average losing trade is 480. And again, that's skewed. It wasn't 50. Well, I didn't make 50% on the first trade because it started at $100. But this is the average trade. The stock price is in the 500s.
Yeah.
You can see all you need to see from this is that it's 10 to 1. So, 25% a year. I could write a book, or any of our listeners could write a book. You make 25% a year on counter trend trades. That's pretty darn good. And this is only one stock. Keep in mind, this is only one stock. So theoretically, you could have a portfolio of anywhere from maybe 2 stocks or 3, or if you do your testing. And it really isn't even that hard to test manually. Look, it's only 61 trades in 5 years.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go out of whack that often, and it stays in trades a long time. It stays in trades for average bars for 7,000 bars. 7,000 bars times 3 minutes. It's a month or longer.
The first thing that someone's going to say when looking at this is if it only wins 14% of the time, it probably won't even win 14% of the time. What you're saying is it doesn't even need to win 14% of the time to be profitable overall.
No. This is 14% makes you very profitable. 13, 12, 11 makes you a little bit profitable. I mean, this is over 240% return at 14%. So it could win less. Absolutely, it could win less. And it does win less through periods. Absolutely, it does.
I think a lot of people assume that their trading methodology is going to win 90% of the time. They find out that it wins 50% of the time, and that's enough to just damage the whole thing beyond repair.
50% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah.
No, it really depends. And we talked about how you have to decide who you are.
Right.
If you need to win a lot, then the other Bossilator way we're talking about wins a lot. If you've taken a Bossilator reading like we just talked about on Starbucks or any of the others we looked at, and you take 1% trades, your winning percentage is not going to be 14%.
Right.
Your losing percentage might be 14%. You're going to win all the time. If you have a lot of space and you're going back to fair value and all you want is a little chunk along the way, you can reverse this around. But if you want the big profit targets and you want to make big money in counter trend trading, you're going to have to lose a lot because there's going to be a lot of false starts.
If the computer's doing it, I could possibly stomach that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. With me pressing the buttons, and I've said it before, I absolutely love trading more than anything else. I don't particularly care about pushing the buttons. I don't like that. I like analyzing, and I like watching it, but it's emotional for anyone to lose all the time. But to have the numbers in front of me and to have the computer do it, that's the only way I personally could do it. That's the only way I could have a low winning percentage system. I mean, it helps me immensely to just look at it in a detached manner.
That's really cool. Well, I really appreciate this. I keep coming back to this concept time and time again that a low win percentage with a really great big profit target is one of the only ways to long-term let an automated system run.
Well, I agree. I'm agreeing that I would agree with that because if you could just to trust it, you want it to take big wins. And first of all, or most importantly, it's going to be hard for me as a human to wait for 10 to 1. So if I'm going to trade big, not only is that maybe the best way for an automated system to do it, but how many times do you want to take that profit? I'm 9 to 1, take it. No, wait, the robot says 10, so you wait for 10.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think it's a great way to trade with a low winning percentage. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Anything else, Scott?
No, I wanted to show the short ones, and I wanted to show the long term. I thought I want to make sure we give a lot of options so people can fit the way they want to trade.
All right.
But I was fascinated by this because it seems like with all the losing, it seems like it isn't profitable, and it's darn profitable.
Well, I'll switch over and become the presenter again, and you can look at the Australian dollar, US dollar. If you're looking at my picture, you could see all the runoff coming out of my head. I swear I'm going through a box of tissues every hour. It's just crazy. Kevin alerts us to the fact that the Australian dollar is falling a little bit, kind of like what we were asking for, and it's trying to get down to that round number 1.0100. Once again, if you took the trade 20 minutes ago, you were 20 minutes ago too early. And I'm not saying that you have to wait Scott and I are just saying that waiting is the hardest part, as Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers would tell you. What they don't tell you is how awesome waiting is. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers should record a song called The Profit Target is the Awesomest Part, or something like that. But
Why Am I Bankrupt After All These Years? You could write that song too.
and I love Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And waiting is the hardest part. We've gone back to red, just as we talked about, Scott. We're divergent again. We had an indicator alert, just like we talked about. If it falls again, it's going to go divergent again. That's exactly what it did. And now we have red Heiken Ashi candles. We're going to eventually turn blue. I would love for this to drop to 0-100 and provide a buying opportunity. Scott, anything that you'd like to add to that discussion of the Australian dollar?
No, again, we could even get the cloud involved too. If we could just wait a little bit longer, we might be able to get in on the Haikanashi and have that maybe coincide with a little bit of cloud breaking. I think that'd be fantastic. And I just love the reading and I love the space. It's a good trade.
To review, the Bossilator reading on the Australian dollar, US dollar 5-minute chart is over 1100. That's an early warning sign that it's going to turn around and go up the opposite direction. We talked tonight about the smooth jazz methodology of planning a counter trend trade. Lesson 6.8 on Bossilator.com will teach you the basic elements of that. I've just got some indicators up there waiting for you. We'll put a chart up there and a little recording up there this week so you'll get some more information. The Ichimoku cloud tells us that we could have a counter trend buy trade above the dark cloud. If you don't want to get in early, you could get in a little later. It's not really a big deal either way to me. One way gets you in earlier, one way gets you in a little bit later. Both ways can work just fine. Also, we looked at the euro dollar. The euro dollar has been affected by two things. The non-farm payroll report that was, I'd say, worse than expected, but the American economy is creating jobs at an average pace of 190,000 jobs a month. That's enough to keep pace with population growth and the growth of the working force in America. That's actually not so bad. It's not a giant recovery, but no one expected a supernatural recovery. Until Facebook goes public, we won't have a rocket ship of a stock market. Once Facebook goes public, assuming that goes well and we don't see any major improprieties, you're going to see a general positive stock market for the whole year. We've said it since the beginning of the year. This is a good year for equities. It's a good year for risk. It's a bad month for risk. It's a bad month for Apple. But in general, Apple is healthy. The economy is healthier than it was 2 years ago. The American consumer and the worldwide consumer is probably just as bad off as they were 2 years ago. But things are getting slightly better on the whole. On an individual basis, you might think that things are still terrible. But, you know, Ned Kelly says, got to watch out for Starbucks. If Mitt Romney gets elected, we might have an anti-caffeine agenda in the White House. That's kind of funny. I think that's pretty funny. Thanks, Ned. Scott, so we looked at the euro. It's also falling because Holland was elected president of France. Holland is anti-EU, anti-treaty, anti-bailout, pro-France. He's also, I think, more of a socialist than Sarkozy. I don't know what that means. But the market doesn't like an uncertainty. Even if we all know that France won't bail on the euro, uncertainty is not good. And so the market is selling the euro off on that news. Who knows if that will continue or not? I'm not in particular very bullish on the euro. We're not even close to a Bossilator reading that would say to buy it, Scott. So we are definitely in trend trade mentality for the euro right now, going south.
Oh yeah, south is the place to be for the euro. It's beautiful down south in Europe this time of year.
Yeah, and the Australian dollar is going divergent again on our charts. The euro is massively divergent, big time. That doesn't mean it's going to switch directions. The Bossilator reading is not high enough to give us a reversal, and we're just curling over here on the euro. We could fall further overnight. The news is enough to carry that for quite some time, I suppose.
Look at that short trade right there, that hidden divergence.
Yeah,
Look at that huge Haikanashi red bloodbath down. That would have been a great trade.
Yeah, this is a great trade here. This is a great trade right here. And now we're turning over again on a trend trade here. In next weekend's Bossilator webinar, we'll talk about trend trading with the smooth Haikanashi candles. super productive. Probably goes to the top of my list on the trend trading methodologies that we've talked about. There's no repainting. It's a trade now, but it's not a trade later. It's really reliable. A lot of fun. Lots of winning trades. Small losers, big winners. Everything you look for. And of course, said it before, we'll say it again. Tonight's trade of the night is an Australian dollar, US dollar, 5-minute chart, buy trade. We're divergent. We'd like to see it fall to the round number 1.0100 and then remain divergent, change from red to blue on the Heikin-Ashi candles, and then have a buy trade that goes up at least 50 pips, if not the full 200 on the Australian dollar, US dollar. If we've got any additional questions, let's try and check this action out. 5-minute chart. Rob, what moving average is on your chart, and do you just use it for direction? What's the CCI set to? Okay, Elliot. Great questions tonight, Elliot. I really appreciate it. Super, super appreciate it. Elliot, I want to direct your attention to, for those of you interested in the cloud, I want to direct your attention to the webinar section of TFL 365. Go to tfl365.com, click on webinars. There's a free webinar. You don't have to pay for it. Most of you are already members, so you'll have it. And scroll down and click on the Boris Rob Ichimoku Cloud webinar. And you can watch why I have my settings in the place that I do, why I use the CCI in the way that I do. It's free. I'll post information about the CCI, the cloud, and the Bossilator on the Bossilator.com website. But if you have questions about the cloud, that webinar can clear up some of those questions for you right away tonight. And it's got a lot of in-depth material, Elliot, that covers questions you haven't even asked yet. So I hope you like that as well. Excellent. Looks like we've covered most of your questions. We're looking forward to seeing you next week. Next week, we'll talk about trend trading methodologies with those smooth candles. We've got a new way to trade stocks with the Bossilator. Thank you, Scott, for sharing that.
I'm glad to share. I'll have something new next week too.
Kevin and Adrian, Elliot, thank you for your questions. Everyone, thank you for being here tonight. I've recorded the webinar. I'm going to make sure it doesn't get damaged. I'll stop the recording right now. For those of you watching the recording, thanks for being here.